Welcome to was that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. What?
Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 45 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me. One day we'll get this intro. An X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod, and this is Lucy. I keep forgetting to point her out because before we did videos, people just thought I was talking to myself, but she's always back here sleeping on piano. Well, most of the time. Sometimes she'll play a song for us.
Yeah, I want to say it was the first time we recorded remotely, and in the at the tail end of it, Lucy decided to play a song, and you were like, well, looks like that has to be turned off for all future recordings.
Yep. Guess what I forgot to do today when I was interviewing Hinder for my music podcast is turn this piano off, and she played his little song for Hinder, so that's Lucy's claim to fame now.
So I've interrupted an Edward McCain interview, and Lucy has played a song for Hinder.
Yep. I'm saving
your music podcast is making dreams come true, Rod. So.
I'm saving all those clips for like a holiday special of just the bloopers.
Whereas this show, you don't have to save anything because it's one entire blooper. So.
Yeah.
And I'm JC, and what you guys missed in between episodes, which sadly we did not have the camera recording, Lucy rolled over and Rod had to catch her before she hit the ground as she was sleeping.
Yeah, she was sleeping. She was so sound asleep. She was like, she got like this far, was dangling off. I was like, here you go.
And I was upstairs getting a drink, so I missed it too.
Yeah, I had a little heart attack too. I dropped my headphones over here. I was like, oh no.
Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we are going back and we are watching every single X-Men animated episode we can find. Next year, we're going to be digging even deeper. This podcast started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, which built up to the release of X-Men 97. And along the way, we became friends with a bunch of people who have worked on the shows and have had a bunch of them pop up on our companion show called the Xavier Files, where we interview members of the cast and hopefully some people from the crew, hopefully a music department connection, because it's not like we don't have the theme song of our own show written by a certain Wasserman. Yeah. But that's shit for next year to worry about. Since the season 2 of X-Men 97 is a ways off, possibly a full year, we are back for our final, second half of our first walkthrough of X-Men Evolution. I stumbled through the tail end of that, and I'm just going to force it through, Rod. Keep going.
No, it works. I think it's pretty safe to say more than a year, because I can't remember the last time Disney was like, surprise, we're done with this show early.
Certainly not Blade.
Yo, you see that? It's pretty much cut from the lineup.
It is, as of today, we got the news that it is delayed indefinitely. That is the exact phrasing from Marvel on this.
Just to put in context, that movie was announced a couple months after Endgame. Mm-hmm. This was 2019. And
then his voice was in the end of Eternals.
Yeah, which makes me sad because I know the joke is Eternals doesn't count, but I still think it's not.
It still counts.
It's not the worst thing Marvel has made. I would get if you're like Iron Fist never happened. I think all of us would agree that'd be better. But Eternals,
that's Netflix. That's Netflix. Yeah. So it doesn't count.
Or even Secret Invasion. That.
Okay, agreed. That
was in 612 universe. That didn't happen here. Anyway, some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago, the final season. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We're currently not sponsored by or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter. As of today, I still haven't made our Blue Sky account, and I keep forgetting to post on Threads, and also Facebook's there. And more importantly, make sure that you're following us and setting your downloads to automatically download our episodes on your favorite podcast services, and also give ratings on podcast services, because damn it, we want to be number 1 on CastBox.
Yeah, I didn't even... do we have an update on that or anything?
No.
We'll do it next time. We probably haven't moved at all because there's nobody on there. Or
People literally download the CastBox app and they go, no, and they just delete it probably.
It was like me when Pokemon Go first crashed on my phone. I was like, I don't care enough about this.
The first day? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was the least stable release of the version, that app. I was like, you know what? I don't care enough about this.
Meanwhile, I have not missed a login since July of 2016. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, yeah, you were there from the beginning when people were still
I was on day one. I want to say it was a Wednesday, and I was literally picking up my comic books at Golden Apple and was like, whatever the most basic shit possible, I was catching it on La Brea and Melrose in LA.
I was going to ask if you had swung by that fountain that's in the middle of Hollywood that everybody used to congregate at for some Pokemon thing.
The fountain in Hollywood?
I even think it was a dry fountain or something. There was a spot in Hollywood, like I think on Vine or something, or near Vine, that I remember there always being like, although to me everything was congestion, so who knows?
No, but I was there for one of the Dragonite runs at Santa Monica. So.
I was at Santa Monica Pier. I just didn't go there for 2 years.
I mean, that's probably just a good life choice.
Right. Especially with the Pokemon stuff. Or the La Brea Tar Pits. That place was fucking dangerous during Pokemon Go.
Yes, I did play there. Yeah.
I literally ran into parents that weren't paying attention to their kids in strollers. And I was like, listen, I don't want to tell you how to parent, but you're at the Tar Pits. It seems like there'd be a little bit more concern here than other places.
Randomly, I played Pokemon Go in its like launch window with Captain Sparkles at the Tar Pits, just because we were there at the same time, and him and I had like a meeting before together, and we just started talking and playing Pokemon Go.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was a throwback.
Yep.
Anyway, now onto this show.
Minecraft music. That's a good transition
right.
into X-Men Evolution.
Today we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 13. Wait, oh, no.
Fuck!
Season 4, Episode 2. I'm remembering.
Rod, make sure you lower my scream.
Okay.
I forgot to update the script in that spot.
That's all good. So, called No Good Deed, ... Very millennial. It aired September 6, 2003, and currently sits at a 7.0 star rating on IMDb. Did you know that the ... the ellipses is a millennial thing? I only found out because all these people younger than me make fun of me for using it.
I use it constantly, so that doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
That's just my cynicism coming out. That's where I'm like, oh, I could finish this thought and then get banned from all meta services.
Right. Yeah, so apparently it's the ellipses and throw your hands up in the air. That's a millennial thing.
I feel like throw your hands up in the air is like what I see like drunk Gen Xers do at weddings.
We probably inherited it from them.
Yeah. I don't want to take that one. I don't agree with that one.
I mean, it's in the music, definitely. If you go back and listen to all the bangers from our adult years, they're all pretty much hands up more than any other generation.
I still say it was Gen X's stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we inherited a lot of weird things. Like, what was the joke? Like, why did millennials start making mommy and daddy like sexual terms? It's like, well, because Gen Xers and boomers made baby a sexual term. I was like, ooh, we're gonna leave that there.
I think we should get into the episode.
Yep. So this previously on was pretty straightforward. It was the last episode. For us, that was minutes ago. For you, it was last week.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but essentially it was the follow-up to Apocalypse appearing in the Mayan temples and building it, basically the WandaVision setup of the dome over Westview, only instead it was in Mexico.
And turning Magneto into glitter.
Yeah, Magneto, yeah, like as you said, Sailor Mooned out of there. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to be led to believe that he perished, but of course that's not how the show works, or any show works with any character. And nobody can penetrate the dome. We don't know what it is, but it's something that I got the feeling that it's not even necessarily strength. It's just something like otherworldly that is not, it's not like a brute strength thing. Yeah,
it's like a future force field thingy.
Yeah. But really, the biggest takeaway that we both had, and I feel like a lot of people had, is that like Rogue fucking destroyed Mystique, literally, like threw her off her stone corpse off a cliff. And so the last thing we saw in that episode was Nightcrawler weeping at the bottom of the cliff by the water with pieces of his mother.
Which is not at all addressed in this episode, as I mentioned last time. And it's not a major story point at any time here, but there is one shot where all the X-Men, including the New Mutants, are all in the same room, and Nightcrawler and Rogue in the same room, totally cool with each other, despite the fact that she killed her stepmom / your mom.
Yeah. Maybe this is when they went on the cruise.
Nope. Nope, they're all there. Everybody's back.
No, in between. They Rogue killed her mother. They went on a cruise and they came back and they're refreshed.
No, but here's the thing. So the episode kicks off with the Brotherhood that are on a train, and a guy is reading the newspaper, and it has photos from the fight with Magneto and Apocalypse, which means that this happened maybe at absolute most 48 hours prior.
Oh, that's right. Like a news cycle, a printed news cycle.
Printed news cycle, and I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt of this happened in the middle of the night in Mexico, and it took a minute for stuff to get there. Yeah. But so Wanda and Pietro, Wanda more so, are grieving about their dad dying. So that meant it's only been a day, maybe a week, to the point where we get to the Rogue and Nightcrawler in the same room with each other after the murder. The Rock murder, but murder, yeah.
Yeah, not quite as bad as Jubilee watching her own self being arrested on the news, but pretty close. But yeah, there's we start. It's funny like to see like early 2000s like cinematic setups, because we start like focusing on like a rat that's on railroad tracks in the subway.
Which wouldn't that thing be electrocuted?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I remember. Because
isn't it the third rail's electricity, or is that an urban legend? Like, I legit don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. You know, I'll say there has to be something else going on there, because at least I know this is New York, so in LA, I was taking the train actually to LA Comic-Con a few weeks ago, and I had to call the police because there was a person that was not of sound mind running on the railroad tracks
and not being electrocuted.
Not being electrocuted, at least visibly. If he was, and he was on some hard stuff that made him not feel it.
Some great meth. Right. That's some Bakersfield shit right there.
And I called 911 because I was like, I know that a train is coming soon because I'm waiting for it, and he's on the tracks.
Right.
And I don't want to start my Comic-Con with that.
I think that was a good choice.
Yeah. But he was electrocuted. So I don't know. At least there may be a possibility that it's not, but I don't know. Yep. But yeah, it almost basically gets run over by a train. I don't know. That might have messed things up, right? Because isn't the whole thing about trains like things like that? Like when they told us as kids, trains above ground. Like if you put a penny on the railroad tracks,
that's bullshit.
Potentially do it. Okay,
that's bullshit. That I know that one's bullshit.
Gotcha. Yeah. So who knows? But the whole point of the rat and the train thing, the train tracks thing, was to go into the subway train, and in one of the cars is the Brotherhood, and they're, like you said, they're reading the newspaper and all that stuff.
Well, there's a single dude reading the newspaper.
Yeah, who's not with the Brotherhood, but I guess he kind of figures out because Quicksilver like takes the paper from him.
Right. Quicksilver sees that Wanda is bothered by the headline, so he runs by and grabs it, and he does it so fast that the dude's toupee is like off to the side. And then it's like, that kid didn't really move at normal human speed, so maybe I should fuck off a bit.
Right. Everybody else in the car. Well, I guess that's what I think the least believable thing is how few people were on this subway. In the entirety of the subway, not just like this specific car.
But it's Bayville and not New York. That is the difference.
I guess. Yeah, but any place that has a public transit at all, I don't know. It's a weird, especially
I don't know how big Bayville is, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very confused about the population of this city.
So who was it? Somebody keeps teasing Wanda about it. Oh, Toad, right? Is telling Wanda like was it Quicksilver that was like, you didn't even like Dad before. At one
point you didn't like him. Because she's pissed that the X-Men didn't do anything. They let it happen. And he's like, yeah, you like, but he was also a crappy dad to you. And he's like kind of hinting at all the mastermind stuff. Like he's about to break the story to her. And before that happened, she like blows up when he's like, Dad was just a bully who went after a bigger bully. And he said he kind of like got what was coming to him, but it was also like the early version of fuck around, find out.
Yeah.
And she does not like that.
And that causes like a cognitive dissonance that for normal people would, like unpowered people, would be just like young screaming and, mental torment. For her, it manifests into like warping the reality around her. Like at first it starts as like one of the poles you hang on to just bending, but then she shorts out the track and the train, so the train derails,
and the tracks actually start like bending and shit too.
Yeah, which as someone who takes public transit, like that is a nightmare. Like to just in real life to think about like the train going off the tracks, and especially into, because even though this is animated, I can see that happening because of how fast they go, especially into like the public waiting areas and stuff. So,
well, you never hear about a train derailing where they don't mention how many fatalities there were for it. Like that, those two things are tied together.
Yeah. And so the train derails, and then like it expands to show like how much train there. It wasn't just a couple cars; it was like the entire length of the thing. And outside, which I originally thought was a school, but I guess it was like a Greater Bayville kind of.
No, that was
it a school?
That was a school.
Okay, so they were like right next to the school.
So here's where the timing is fucked, because this is 2 weeks and a day following the events of the season finale stuff. Why are the kids in school if Scott and Jean just graduated 2 weeks prior?
They're given rides?
No.
I don't know.
But they wouldn't be there unless they're all such bad students from missing class to go fight other mutants that they're all in summer school. But that's me being absolutely pedantic.
Given this school, there was probably military training, because why not?
But they were at the school, not the institute.
No, that's what I mean. Because remember the school, they had that field trip where they had to go climb a mountain or some shit?
Oh, yeah. You're right. Bayville is a fucked up city, dude.
Weird, yeah. So Scott arrives, and he's like, what the fuck is that? And Kitty runs up. She's like, we think there's a subway fire. I'm like, I don't know how you just deduced that, but sure, let's go for it.
Yep, I had that too. I was like, how does Kitty know that?
That's why I thought, like, okay, maybe this is not the school. But
no, that was definitely the school. Yeah.
So
there are problems with this episode, right?
And so Scott and Kitty go to where the fire is.
Bobby was there too.
Yeah, okay. And then the Brotherhood is in the train car, and initially they're stuck. And finally someone yells at Blob. He's like, Blob, make a door. And he just punches his way out.
Well, Lance sees that there's like some sort of leak that might spark and catch.
Oh, that's right.
Toad loses his goddamn mind. And then Blob is like, I'm just going to barrel through shit.
Yeah. So
I think Blob is the only one that if this actually exploded, he would survive it. I think he would survive it. Yeah.
And he kind of, I guess he knows that the sides aren't accessible because they're in the subway. So he breaks through each of the train cars. That's when we kind of get a better idea like how many cars there are. But there's only 3 people in total on this train. And
no, there were more than that.
Well, later they give a different count. And it doesn't include the guy with the toupee that had the newspaper. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what happened like there, but or maybe they were already dead and they didn't worry about it. I don't know. So on the way out, though, everybody else is following Blob. There's a little old man that like grabs onto Toad and is like, save me. And Toad's trying to like wipe him off like a bug. He's like,
because Toad stopped to literally pick up a wallet.
Oh, that's right. He's like, ooh, money. Yeah. And it was that guy's wallet. Mm-hmm. And he's like, please save me. And he's clinging on to him. He's like, gross. And then he just gets on his back, and Toad's still trying to like get out of there. So he just goes not to save the guy, but in spite of him being there, and like kind of leaves. And he, you can kind of tell what's going to happen here, because then like I think was it Quicksilver? No, Lance walks by a little old lady.
So there's a bunch of people who are running through, and as they're all walking by this woman who it looked like her wheelchair had fallen over, and she couldn't get herself out. And Lance hears it, and that's where Lance stops to help her out and pick her up and get her out of there.
And so outside the subway entrance, I guess, on the street, there's a bunch of news crews there and stuff, because congregating near an explosion, I guess, is a smart idea. And everybody's
like I said, there are problems with this episode.
Right. Everybody's running out of the subway. And Toad like kind of flings the guy that's on his back off. And
he doesn't just fling him off, he kicks him away. Like he gives him like a mini like Sparta kick.
Yeah. And he's like, ooh, get off me. And then the news crew's like, oh, he saved him. And then the guy's like, yeah, he saved me. And then he's like, is there anybody else down there? And they're like, 2 more. And we're like, how few people were there down there?
I think we're given the impression that between the initial Blob run up and then when the old man gets kicked off, that like the other people got off. I think it was at least like 2 dozen people total, but they're not going to animate all of it, you know?
Yeah. And then Lance emerges from the smoke with the lady just in time for all the explosions to happen. So it's like this big, like, heroic Michael Bay scene. And the news crew.
But he didn't dive with the woman in his hands, because that would have been the Michael Bay moment.
Yeah.
he like kind of did it. He did the slow-mo, like, I'm ignoring the fire behind me vibe. So
yeah, he and none of them really know what's going on, but the news crew's like, oh my god, you saved all these people. And I kind of had flashbacks to something, not that I ever saved anybody, but like to a news situation in real life where they weren't aware what was happening. And in fact, initially they were going to try to deny that they had anything to do with what was going on, but once they noticed there was a positive like reception from the media, they spun it to like, yeah, we totally did this. We're called the Brotherhood. In real life, I was part of like a major TV prank. I didn't know it at the time, and there was a couple former friends on there with us. They were complaining the whole way up. And just because I've been in this town long enough at that point, I was like, something's off. I don't know what, but something weird's going to happen. Like fucking Oprah's just going to show up or something, you know, something random like that. I don't know. I didn't know it was going to be televised. Meanwhile, these two...
And that's when you climbed the Hollywood sign with Vitaly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, these two friends are just like, Rod, you're so dumb and overreacting. This is nothing. This is what we think it is. We're just going to go to this test screening of this movie or whatever. For literally like the 3 hours before we get to the, and that was part of what was weird. I was like, it's taking 3 hours to get to this test screening. Like something's off, and they're busing us to the, anyway. It turns out we're in this big elaborate prank that was televised on national television and stuff. And then when it was over, the news crews swarm us, and these two, like, they start approaching me and somebody else that was with me about like asking questions. And then these two friends that had denied it the entire time physically like push us out of the way, or like, well, we had it figured out from the beginning. And they give this
I noticed how you phrased it as former friends.
Yeah. This is a whole bullshit story. I was just like off to the side. I was like, if they didn't lock our phones up so we couldn't record any of this,
you would have been recording the entire time. I wish
I would have had this and stuff like. So I've been keeping that to myself for years. I'm glad that there's finally like a little place to kind of subtweet this, because I just need to get this frustration out. But I felt it when this moment happened with the Brotherhood. They were like, yeah, totally. I was like, I know the real life. Guys.
That's kind of like to an a little bit of extent, like there was recently all the stuff about Mr. McMahon coming out and Vince, and there was like 6 anonymous writers who spoke to Sports Illustrated.
Oh, okay.
And they described things that were like, it was awful, and then this, and this. And I'm like, I'm not denying that it's awful. But the stories you just told about why it was awful, I could say a lot more shit, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, right.
So...
Anyway,
because I am scared of NDAs. Right.
I can't wait for some of these to end, though, because I'm writing a book soon. Or not soon, but in time for retirement, we'll put it that way. Nope. But as they're all taking credit for, Wanda sneaks away. I love that a continuing thread is, in this season, she's the only one that makes sense in the Brotherhood. I mean, she's still, like, kind of mixed up, but she's like, yeah, I'm not going to be part of that mess. Like, no, that's a lot to remember.
Yeah. And Quicksilver is the one who's like embracing it along with Toad, as Toad is telling these stories. And Quicksilver's like, you could call us the Brotherhood. It's like, oh, I want to punch you in the throat.
Right. And then we kind of pan over, and I think this is a new situation where Principal Kelly is running for political office.
For mayor.
Mayor, and him and I guess his campaign manager are watching a new ad about him bringing something up, the Mutant Registration Act, which is, like a canon event for X-Men. And she's like, I think this will like rate high with with voters and stuff. And then immediately afterwards is the Brotherhood saving. And the way they worded it too.
It's also because I did one, speaking of my WWE days, it's a very well done political ad. Mm-hmm. Obviously not agreeing with the sentiment that he's giving, but how it's written. I had to do a parody ad once for JBL. Oh, yeah. Because he did a vote for JBL for Cyber Sunday, so not obviously a real political thing, but part of my professional career for a few months is I was a professional copywriter for political advertising. So the things that they were hitting, I was like, yep,
Nice.
yep. I was like, oh, obviously it's parody, but it's like, yeah, they nailed how those ads were written to a T. So,
Oh, that's great. You should, both people listening and UJC, check out, there's a creator that we're kind of in similar circles, named Philosophy Tube, Abigail Thorne. And she just posted a short that I'm assuming is a clip from either a video that's coming out soon or already out, where she kind of gives like a political statement, but by the end of it, you realize she said nothing. And she was like, so what I've just done here is I've sold you a sentiment.
Right.
And nothing concrete. And I was like, what a brilliant, like, I love that. Like when she's so good at illustrating these things. It's like, I always know there's something off about this, but I don't know how they get away with it. And like that little like moment that she demonstrated, she's like, I used enough words to set up the tent poles of a feeling for you.
The best part, this episode is going live to the audience the day before the election.
Oh, Jesus.
The literal day before.
God. Well, we're all staying home for the purge, so like
I watched that during the 2026 election.
Jeez.
Sorry, 2016. I am horrible with dates today.
I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. We're gonna go away.
We still got a week and a half for that asteroid, Rod. Your vote.
Yeah, Asteroid 2024. Or who knows? Like maybe Agatha will reach out of the screen and save us all.
Or it's going to be like not the well.
Oh, the ring.
The girl, the ring. Yeah, the VHS tape. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. But Kelly's campaign manager is like, oh, maybe we should change your anti-mutant stance. He's like, no. We just have to change the public perception, which again,
it's more
really perfect timing right now for all that. And I don't want to dive deeper because it's depressing.
No. Yeah. Everybody, you know already. Everybody knows.
Yep.
And back at the mansion, Kitty and Scott are visibly and verbally upset about all the press that the Brotherhood is getting. Which is
it literally is like cities praising the Brotherhood, and she calls it baloney, which it's like 90s. I get you can't swear, but it's like God, just modern era. Just say bullshit. Like just yeah.
Although she was pretty young, I guess. I remember kids saying baloney. Maybe not when a teenager, but
yeah. And Scott goes to Xavier, and Xavier's trying to be like a little bit middle groundy there, where he's like, it's probably good that the public perception of mutants isn't just full of hate right now.
That does kind of suck, right? Where you're like, well, technically our mission was to be accepted by non-mutant humans.
Yeah.
And that is happening. We maybe should have been more specific with that goal, that it would be with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, technically Xavier's mission is all mutants get accepted. It's not solely his side of it. Obviously Scott's like, they're going to mess it up. And Xavier is that useful version of hopeful of like, well, maybe they're going to enjoy being on the right side of things. And it's like, I hate you. I hate this Xavier.
He's like, have you met Toad? Speaking of back at the Brotherhood, the news team is like crowding around the Brotherhood house. So I loved this whole section because this kind of addresses something we joke about this whole podcast about evolution. So first of all, Wanda's still hiding from the press, but Quicksilver's like, they literally want to talk to the girl in our group, which is something totally like late 90s, early 2000s news would say. We're like, yeah, the chick. Yeah. But also specifically probably because she was the only one that hadn't been on the news yet.
Yeah, hadn't spoken to anybody yet.
And he convinces her to go out, but like she's out there for like 1 second. She's like, absolutely not.
But I also she's like, this was my fault. I caused it. He's like, you don't know that. They don't know that. And it was really just like, he's so good at gaslighting her right now.
Yeah. And
he's so good at it.
I love how they're showing it's not just the politicians spinning things. So it's like on one side, the anti-mutant side, Kelly's like, yeah, we just got to change the perception. Quicksilver's doing the same thing in a less organized way. Like he's just kind of figuring it out on the fly. But then the old lady in the wheelchair comes up, and it just so happens, well, she's
rich.
Yeah, so she gives him $10,000, I think is what I saw on the check.
Which I don't believe that a woman who could easily write a $10,000 check to somebody would be riding a subway. By herself.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you never... the only reason I say that is because every once in a while, mostly because it's LA, there's always like that A-list celebrities like, I took the LA Metro to the Oscars, and it's like, well, yeah, that was a great TikTok video, but like, are you doing that on a random Thursday? Like,
yeah. But also, there were not elevators or escalators by that train station either.
That is true. And even if there are, once again, speaking from LA Metro, they never work. It's a terrible place for accessibility.
Nope, I don't buy it.
And but then the most important thing is she just so happens to be in a family of construction, and that's her family business and stuff. So she's like, I want to renovate your home, because she probably looked at it and like, I can tell this foundation is fucked because of the amount of natural disasters that have happened here.
Why does it look like this home has survived 17 earthquakes?
Right. And so, but it happens like instantly. Don't like a bunch of like construction trucks like just start driving up. And,
without their consent.
Yeah, so it's like the what's the Home Network show where they do the makeovers? Like, is it House Maker, Home Makeover, or whatever?
No,
but
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
It has a better name than that, but the one where they do the big reveal of the house and yeah,
it is like, hey, the husband and wife was like a pet sitter and a graphic designer. Our budget is $5 million.
Yeah.
But
those shows don't make sense,
right? But they finally, actually, that would probably be the right time too, because isn't it like the 2000s is where like a lot of those shows like really started gaining a lot of prominence? That might have been kind of in the consciousness of like, oh, we'll renovate this home as like a gift. But I love that that's kind of addressed, because we made so many jokes about like, wait, how can they explode this floor, blow this up? Nick kicked the door down, Lance creates earthquakes, and like, what is happening here? And they kind of fix it.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
And also not just like fix the house, but apparently the reveal at the end of the episode is they got like a free big screen TV and stuff like that.
Yeah, or I took that as like they took out like debt for, or but I guess what you're saying too, that
there is nobody that was giving those fuckers a loan or a credit card.
But when they get
or maybe that's what they use the $10K from the check for. Yeah.
But speaking of that check, Lance and Quicksilver see the check, and they're both like, hey, we can, like, capitalism, baby. Like, we can deliver a need if we create the need. So they figure out that they can, like, kind of construct all these situations. Ironically, what the X-Men get accused of doing a lot in stories. They do.
Right. I love that the first one is, like, Lance is very doubtful. Also, he's wearing his gear, like, even though he's about to topple a gargoyle, which is way bigger than a gargoyle should be, also, off the top of a building, but he does it in uniform instead of being incognito.
I didn't think about that, yeah.
Like, wouldn't you be in, like, all black and cover up stuff so that way if somebody sees it, like, they don't know it's you because you're the guy who's been on the news lately?
Yeah, and they did have a better plan for this later, which they didn't enact, where, you know, spoilers, is Wanda. Yeah. She can do everything with thought.
Yeah. But yeah, so they almost crush a bunch of people with a gargoyle. Blob is able to catch it, which I don't think Blob is coordinated enough to catch it, if I'm being honest, but neither here nor there. And then my phrasing was, Pietro almost my girl's 2 kids, because he launches a swarm of bees with the hive at these 2 kids. And Toad starts eating them with his tongue. I don't believe Toad is fast enough to be able to save those children. Aside from not looking up, will a frog eat bees?
Right.
Those 2 kids would be dead from being like stung. Right? They are dead. Those kids died.
I thought it was wild to be like, wow, yeah, you just set up a bunch of bees after children.
Like I said, he my-girled those 2 kids.
And same, it's funny, you were thinking, like, could he do it fast enough? I was thinking when that happened, I was like, so is that just, like, spicy food for him? Is that how that works? Like, wait, is there a physics thing for that? I was just kind of saying, like...
Do frogs eat bees? Do frogs eat bees in Minecraft is the autocomplete.
That's funny.
Yes. Frogs eat bees.
Really?
Frogs are predators that eat a wide variety of insects, including bees, wasps, and flies. I still don't think he's fast enough to take out an entire swarm, but yes.
That's so funny.
Also, can we just take a quick pause and acknowledge that the show 911 on TV had the B NATO as a 3-week event to do the premiere of this season on like a regular TV network, not on Sci-Fi.
That's so funny. I didn't know that. I don't watch cable, so
it was literally like the snake eating its own tail in Hollywood. When I saw that commercial, I yelled at the TV.
That's so funny.
I yell at the TV a lot, though.
Right. You're an old man yelling at cloud.
I'm yelling at the cloud instead of at clouds.
Yeah. Somebody's got to make that meme. It's like yelling at like Dropbox or something. Like old man yells at cloud.
It's just me.
Yeah. And then in one of the saving scenarios, X-Men show up, and this bothered me mostly because I've been taught by you guys like what this is. Scott zaps a newspaper, and it bursts into flames.
So he didn't show up. That was at the mansion still.
Oh, okay.
And he threw the newspaper up in the air.
He threw it up in the air, yeah, and then set on fire.
So I didn't interpret it as like burst of flames. I thought it was just like he hit it with a mini beam, and it just like if you punch a paper bag kind of, and it just like shatters out. I didn't interpret it as flames.
Okay.
But I see what you're saying.
So it might have been like the beams dispersing that look like fire. Right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's on fire?
No. but what I did like is the next thing is Lance creates an earthquake, which he's the only person in this town that could do, and the news is too dumb to pick it up. The bus goes out of control and almost hits a woman with a baby, which happened almost like 2 seasons ago, also in this show. And the bus is headed to 2 guys on the bus stop.
Yeah, I think I know.
There's a poster on the bus stop that says "The Spin Doctor," which was perfect for the narrative of this episode.
Right, because I guess it's like a nod to obviously the '90s band Spin Doctors, but for the thing that's happening, where there's like, yeah, we're just gonna put our little spin on this.
I think you were giving way too much credit to the guys who only had that 2-song runs. And don't get me wrong, I like their 2 songs.
Yeah. They
would not be getting a poster in 2003.
Well, maybe one of the animators or writers was a fan.
Kind of like how in Agatha All Along, there's a Black Cauldron poster inside Billy's room.
Oh, I didn't know. See, I need to go back and like rewatch the earlier episodes because there's so many Easter eggs in there, even within the show.
Oh, it was the most recent episode.
Yeah, but I mean, even that, I just need to rewatch everything because, I mean, offline we'll have to talk about it. After episode 6, I have some theories.
Yeah, we can't really spoil that show on this show.
Yeah. So. Although I do like, I'll put it this way: in Loki, they revealed that Loki was probably a historical figure. Mm-hmm. I like some of the nods to that with Agatha, and this is it's kind of fun. So if you're not watching Agatha yet, I think it's a perfect like Halloween Marvel show.
The biggest worry I had, without spoiling anything, is I was worried the music was going to be too much.
A musical.
And it is occasionally there. It is not. I was worried it was going to be the full series is a musical. Yeah. It is not that.
It's kind of like WandaVision, where there's one song done by the Lopez's, who did the WandaVision theme song and also Frozen. Do one main song that's reinterpreted throughout the series. But also, there's real versions releasing in our world, like so Japanese Breakfast did a version of Down the Witch's Road that just released, which it's funny that I'm a huge fan of hers. Japanese Breakfast is actually a Korean American lady, but like she has a great version of Witch's Road. It's kind of reminiscent to like the rock version they do, but it's totally like kind of her own thing. So I love that we're getting versions in our world of that song. Anyway, so Spin Doctor in the bus stop. The X-Men are like even more jealous than before, but also suspicious.
And Kurt teleports onto the dinner table with his shoes on, which is just gross.
Especially I'm an Asian kid who grew up. I wasn't even allowed to have shoes in the house. We had to leave that shit in the garage.
Then he basically says the newspaper is saying they have a higher approval rating than the police chief. That's a totally different perception in 2024. Right. And then Xavier's like, it's been very coincidental. Almost too coincidental. Like, it felt very tropey when he was like, I think something's up. It's like, no shit, something's up, Xavier.
Like, did that take your psychic powers? It's like, yeah, psychic powers. That's what that was.
bad Xavier. It's a bad Charles.
And then we see the Brotherhood are driving away, and they're hearing Kelly on the radio, and Kelly actually kind of calls it out. He's like, I still think that their mutants are a problem. For all we know, the Brotherhood is causing these problems.
Yeah, he was actually spot on.
And so the Brotherhood go to, like, fuck up his headquarters. I think they blast a hole in the ceiling or something, right? Like, it looked like it was pretty messed up.
I don't remember specifically seeing a hole in the ceiling, but I do definitely, like, the whole thing was, like, shattered. Like, the stage and stuff like that was all fucked up. I feel like if you're a politician, you should hire at least one security guard for your campaign place, especially if you're verbally attacking mutants.
Yeah, or maybe he did, and they're all dead.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And he arrives to see all that, but then the Brotherhood are waiting for him. And they
basically do, like, a classic shakedown of, like, maybe you should stop this. Well, what if I'm not going to stop it? It's like, well, we're not going to be nice. It was very, like, mafia coded.
Yeah, that's what I know, too. It's like there was, like, a Soprano-style shakedown, except they're kids, so they're not good at it. So, like, it was corny. I mean, not corny from the writing standpoint, but corny from the character standpoint. And also... Like,
they're all trying to be tougher, even though they should be more intimidating based on what they could physically do.
Yeah. And also just didn't, what's the rule, like check the perimeter or whatever? Because at first it looks like just Scott shows up, but then one by one, virtually every X-Men.
Everyone. Yeah.
shows up.
And again, to what I was alluding to, Rogue and Nightcrawler are within close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
24 to 48 hours, maybe even give it benefit of the doubt. This is a week of this shit going on. A week prior, Rogue broke the statue of her mother in front of Kurt.
Yeah. Man, you'll be
that
funny.
Still fucks with... I think this is the problem of when we do recordings, because I will get hung up on something in the first episode, and when it's not addressed in the second episode, I just get angry.
That's fair, though, but you'll be really, really funny. Not for you, but like for the frustration point is like if in the next episode they do deal with it, but it's like really heavy and intense, but doesn't fit.
Yeah. Because it's a full week in between where they seemingly were okay with each other, and Kurt is not grieving because he's standing on the kitchen table. Yeah.
Or if they pick up and Kurt's down at the shore with the pieces.
No, that's sinning. That's not okay. That's like talking about Jean being dead when she had already resurrected. Yeah.
And so all the X-Men come, and there's not even a fight. Was it Lance that was like, not today?
No, Lance is ready to go.
Oh,
Quicksilver was not today.
Yeah, he's like,
we're gonna get our asses handed to us.
Yeah, which is smart, because individual X-Men can beat the Brotherhood, because Wanda's not there. Now come to think of it, that's why Wanda was kind of written out, right? Because she would have been like
she's too strong,
the winning wild card. Yeah. So without Wanda there, they each could be individually defeated by the X-Men, let alone the entire team, like more than like double their numbers.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Berserker could get taken out by Toad, but who knows?
Imagine being taken out by Toad of all of them.
Imagine being Berserker.
Right. And the Brotherhood retreat. Kelly is still mad at the X-Men.
He's still pissed at Scott, which is great.
It's bold. And just reminding everybody, they're not the same age. Kelly is a full generation above these kids, presumably, because he was their principal, and he reminds us that he was their principal. So this is an adult, like
who's mad at kids.
Yeah.
Actually, two of them are adults.
I guess that still show up to school.
So maybe you have Jean, you have Scott, and you have Wolverine, who were the adults in the room. Yeah.
Maybe that's why Kelly was upset with Scott. He's like, you keep showing up to school, but you graduated. I hated you then, but I hate you more now because you don't even have to be here. Actually, it's kind of illegal for you to be here now.
He's picking up kids out front. It's not illegal at that point.
No, in my head, he's like still showing up to class.
He's that much of a nerd.
Yeah. Back at the Brotherhood house, Lance is super upset.
Yep.
That they got foiled.
He's breaking the house.
Yeah. That just got repaired.
So I love Toad is hung up on, like, we're losing popularity. Does this mean my 15 minutes of fame is over? And I looked at the timing on it. It was like, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of fame because it was so short.
Yeah.
It was roughly 6 minutes of real time from when it started in the show to that point. Plus there was a commercial break during it. So if you do that, it was actually like almost exactly 10 minutes of real time.
Oh, man.
If you factor in the commercial break.
I didn't even think about... That's a good call on your side. That's hilarious. I wonder if that was on purpose.
It was not even a full 15 minutes.
That's hilarious. And here we are now.
In real time, it was only like 6 minutes because of no break, because of no commercials.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's also funny to think that was a time in history where people wanted 15 minutes of fame, and now we're approaching. I think we both have a similar. We both have the same mutual friend, but that is really into much higher thinking stuff than I am. Is like we're approaching a time period where people are going to be striving for their 15 minutes of anonymity because everything is broadcast everywhere. Like we're constantly on cameras and identity scans and stuff like.
Yeah. I feel like that's very much our bubble, though. Because there are the people who are from, like, the middle of Idaho or something like that who don't see this constant exposure and still strive for it. Well, also, we literally just added video to a podcast. Right. And you launched another podcast. So
I just mean, like, culturally collective because even now everybody's trying to, like, protect their data online and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's probably the number one thing you see is VPN ads, right, on influencer stuff.
Which most of them are bullshit and don't work. But aside from that, yeah.
Tom Scott did a great video about that if you want to check it out. Because he's like, the data has to go somewhere. Now you're sending it to a private company. But like, I guess just the sense that like there's cookie tracking and all this stuff. And so, but it's funny to think at this point, like, there's people that I guess in this sense is trying to be famous, but just, to try to be known in more places. Meanwhile, like, I don't know. Now people are just like, I don't want my name on that registry. I don't want to be on this mailing list. I want to, I remember when there was a time you got excited to get mail.
No,
like
literally never.
I used to. I remember as a kid, it was like, oh, there's a catalog, or I did order something from a comic book. But now it's like I just dread going to the mailbox.
I mean, I get excited when I get a delivery.
Yeah.
But I've never been excited for mail. So, but yeah, and then Blob is like, I'm just kind of like tired. It's hard to be a villainous hero.
Yeah. I think it's because they went from being lazy around home and then only leaving the house when they needed to cause trouble to now like they have to go manufacture the work and solve the problem.
Yeah, they have to go cause trouble and then solve the trouble.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, maybe, or what was it? There was something with there's more manipulation of Wanda at that point too.
Yeah, so Quicksilver kind of works up Wanda.
Yeah.
It was kind of surprisingly short. I actually rewound it a second to see if I missed something, but he just kind of like plants a seed in her head. Mm-hmm. And then, and then they also had mentioned that the only thing they have going for them is this ribbon cutting at the zoo the next day, which was page
3 of the paper. Page 3 of the local paper.
Which is
that was their 15 minutes of fame at its downturn, was page 3 of the local paper.
Which ribbon cutting at a zoo is a hilarious late 90s trope. I know this is early 2000s, but just like, okay, sure. So then we cut to the ribbon cutting.
Which, I gotta say, the plan for the ribbon cutting didn't feel like it was well thought out. Because the ribbon was being held by 2 elephants.
Yeah.
That were not in any sort of pen or anything like that. They were just walking around with no handlers near them.
I will say this as a guy that my first job out of college was running sound for various events, and I had my fair share of ribbon cuttings where they physically cut a ribbon. Mm-hmm.
I have never been to one in person.
I want to... it's probably best I don't remember what city it was, because this mayor... Although, if you knew where I was, and you remember, leave in the comments, because it's not my fault, but there's a mayor of a city that I was nearby, where I lived on the East Coast. They did a ribbon cutting. He was unaware that the giant pair of scissors was an actual pair of scissors
that could cut.
Yeah, because you're cutting through a ribbon. And I think in his head it was like, it's so comedically large. Of course, they're not real, but
that he thought it was just like cheap plastic, like you'd give to a child.
So yeah, even though they're like clearly metal, like, and so he snapped at someone's head as a joke. and it missed this person's face by like half an inch, and they were like, those are real. That's how he cut through the ribbon. It was a super awkward silence between like, because there was military there, you know, just as like, you know, I think they might have been part of the celebrity.
And
stuff.
how close were you to this, roughly? Like
I was
15,
probably
20 feet?
Yeah, probably like 10, 15 feet behind that mare. I was just like sitting there like, I almost witnessed a man get his nose snipped off.
Yeah, you almost witnessed a murder if that dude was 1 foot over.
So if you end up getting asked to do ribbon cutting, know that they're probably real scissors. So unless they, I don't know, sometimes they do the fake thing where the ribbon's already cut anyway, but I don't even know if they do ribbon cuttings anymore. But they're at the zoo doing ribbon cutting. Like you said, weird situation with like wild animals and stuff. And then this is more smart, like superhero writing. This goes to my thing where like I feel like this is actually a superhero show now. The X-Men are there because they know that some trouble is going to get started, but then they use Wanda to sabotage the X-Men. Like Wanda takes off Scott's visor, and at first I was like, well, he's not controlling it. Then you realize like she's manipulating him to like continuously blast,
which we saw back in her debut fight that happened in the abandoned mall, where he couldn't stop shooting because she literally wouldn't let him close his eyes.
Yeah, and then same thing with like gets Bobby to like make ice on the ground. So like I don't know if I'll ever get the image of a elephant sliding across a patch of ice out of my head. That was hilarious.
And almost landing ass first onto a dude.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone gets manipulated. Even Kitty like gets thrown around and stuff for a long
Kitty
while.
Kitty gets thrown into a crocodile pit. And then gets broken out of it, and the crocodiles are able to just like crawl out. So I feel like there were like 15 people dead at this thing.
Yeah, it became Florida for a little while. And
also the tiger pit, they had like the bars break on the tiger pit, but the tiger just crawled over where that bar was. That was not a high enough bar to stop the tiger from just murdering people on a regular basis.
Yeah, that was the real Tiger King, right?
Yeah, like the tiger could have just crawled out any day. I feel like this was not a well thought out zoo.
Yeah, so it was kind of bound to happen. They just accelerated it, but everybody kind of goes haywire. The only one that kind of holds out for a while is Jean. She's kind of trying to kind of hold things at bay because she's the closest counter to Wanda, right? Like
closest, yeah.
It's like telekinesis
because it's Jean without Phoenix powers. So no.
But then even eventually, I think Jean's trying to. So Nightcrawler even gets manipulated to like teleport around and stuff, and ends up in like a light. Like
the light fixture lights. Falls,
and so Jean catches them, but then Wanda messes with Jean to like drop them. So then Jean's like kind of taken out of commission. At the end of it all, like the X-Men really like seem like the villains and go.
It got
jail.
Resolved off camera, which is my favorite part.
Yeah.
Where the tigers break out, and then it cuts to commercial, and then we come out where they're all in jail cells.
Yeah, they're all in jail. You know, just coming from, I know this wasn't the Midwest, but these kind of like wild animal outbreaks happen periodically in the Midwest where I grew up. Not incredibly normal, you know, but I have memories of them.
I have seen at least 3 or 4 videos just from this summer of bulls getting out of rodeos and just having their day in the sun. They are happy bulls right now.
So what I would say is like, even though the X-Men are in jail, they're probably still wrangling the animals, and it's probably like a week's long mission to try to wrap up that whole thing.
Those crocodiles are in the sewer eating Morlocks and shit. Yeah.
Oh no, poor Leech again. And
Spike.
Oh my god, I forgot about Spike. I think we're supposed to forget about Spike.
Everybody's forgot about Spike.
So the Brotherhood are watching the coverage from home, and they're like, okay.
Ooh, sorry, real quick. Kitty is like, fuck this, and she like phases through the bars, and then Xavier's like, no, get back in there, and she walks back in.
He's like, let me go clean this shit up. I don't know what he was going to do, but
I think he's going to do his mind manipulation shit. Yeah.
And then the Brotherhood are watching from home. They're like, hey, mission accomplished. And most of the guys want to be like, okay, that was our grand finale. But Toad's like, just getting started. I don't want to like let this go, you know? Like, but
and they're all like tired, essentially. They're like, this is too much work to do this shit.
And so they propose, how about we do like one more big thing, go out with a bang. And they specifically awarded that because they make a pun about it later.
Yeah.
so they kind of cut to like almost like a Ocean's 11 kind of montage of how this thing's
like
going.
A really bad one, but yeah.
So Quicksilver sabotages, this time it's an outdoor train, so not a subway, but like an above ground train, so that it's stuck in drive, I guess. I don't know.
I love that he opens the door to the train, which the conductor should have like been aware that the door is open for the wind. But the guy is so focused on conducting that train, he doesn't notice that Quicksilver shorted out the brake.
Yeah, I also don't know. I've never driven a train before, like, or especially a public transit, so I don't know how much concentration that requires, like that amount, or
not enough that you don't notice the door opening.
Right.
I would argue. I would say a door opening would get your attention.
Yeah.
Personally. Yeah.
And then you hear over like the radio that I don't know what it's called. Like, it's not air traffic control, but whatever that is for trains. They're like, you're about to collide with another train, so we have to do this collision plan number 5 or something like that. And they're like, well, I can't stop. And then this other train is of course it's a gasoline train, right? Because that's what's happening here. And they're like, it's too long, and so they're going to.
It is not conductor music radio. I tried. They're basically like, well, you needed to get off of this path. And they're like, well, we already blew through that stop. And now there's another train on the same track headed to you. The amount of time that they take, those trains would have collided already.
Right.
Like, if there is no turnoff for that long of a time frame, something is wrong from a timing perspective, because the X-Men are released from prison and then have time to get onto a helicopter to get there and like save the day. So like that's the Saturday morning like suspension of disbelief for a cartoon.
I also love that. I think that the writers have some trauma from like high school calculus, because this is one of those word problems, right? 2 trains heading towards each other 100 miles an hour. Like, at what point do they,
14 seconds later, right? Because this is a very small city.
Right. And that was another reveal, is like Quicksilver and Lance didn't know that there was a second train.
Yeah, they do the heroic, like, oh, the train is flying by and there's a dude in his car, and they give him the single person speech of like, we're going to save this train. And the older dude is like, yeah, but what about the other train that's headed towards it? Also, that guy, not very concerned about a second train heading towards the one that's going by him when he's near a train track.
He was super chill. He's lived in Bayville long enough. He was like, whatever. It's like living in Gotham City. You're like, my time's going to come at some point. Yeah. You just got to hope it's
or the Marvel version of Manhattan, where it's like, oh, there's going to be a fucking spider island or a symbiote war or vampires. Like, I'm here for 17 minutes at best.
And so the Brotherhood are like, well, we're not even going to try this. So like, let's just drive out of the blast radius. Mm-hmm. And but Lance stays behind. And the X-Men, like you said, have enough time to get released from prison, get on a helicopter, get there. Half the team goes to Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Kitty get on the passenger train to try to stop it. They're able to like kind of slow it down. But they get the front car, the driving car, off so that the passengers can be separate.
The engine.
The engine. And then Jean goes to the fuel train to try to like stop that from happening. But then they're like, where's Kitty? And they see that Kitty's on the engine car, and Nightcrawler teleports over there, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, I'm gonna phase this train through that one. And he's like, yeah, that's not even happening, because... And
I mentioned it previously, Kitty, in this version, is not great with her powers.
Yeah.
And every time she uses her power, where she has to go through multiple things, like at the last one, she runs face first into a wall. This is not the comic book version of Kitty, who literally phased a giant space bullet through a planet. This is a Kitty who gets tired at the 80% mark.
Yeah, and also, like, this is like the worst case scenario, right? Because it's like the lengthways of a very long thing. Like, so she's going straight through, like, at a pair, like right through the middle of this, or going.
Yeah, it's not even parallel. It's literally straight down the center.
And to her credit, she does get kind of far into it, maybe halfway through, it looks like, or something.
I would say she even got to that 80% mark, except when she starts to let go of it, it is literally metal on metal with gasoline.
Yeah, and it scrapes through, it splits the train in half, then it explodes, but then Jean saves the day by containing the fire, but even she's struggling because...
It's so much.
Yeah, so she's only able to do it for so long. And as she's starting to lose it, we see an earthquake happen to start making craters, and we figure out it's Lance because he's left behind. He stayed behind to engulf the fuel train underground.
Yeah, it kind of made an earth barrier on top of it, so it just burned itself out underground.
Which that's got to be a fun cleanup job afterwards. And
also now the train track is fucked too.
Right. And
so now your subway is fucked and your above ground train is fucked.
He says that something like that will be the last time or whatever.
Because Scott steps in front of him are we gonna go? And same problem we had with X-Men the Animated Series, they just let people go here. Yeah. It's yes, he did save the day, but at the same time it's he literally caused the thing that he had to save, and if it wasn't for you guys showing up, those people would have still been dead.
Yeah.
So,
and then the episode ends at the Brotherhood house, where all their stuff's getting repoed for whatever reason, whether it was the lady or the stuff they bought on credit cards or something. It's all getting taken away. Toad is not willing to let go of the big screen TV. And
technically, I don't think you could undo the work that's been done even if it hasn't been paid. So those people repossessing stuff in the house, that's illegal.
Oh, okay. Or maybe are they repoing it because the construction couldn't be undone? I don't know.
All I'm saying is I've seen enough reels on Instagram of contractors who are oh, well, you didn't pay me. I'm going to go fuck up your house, stuff like that. And screaming lawyers on Instagram have verified that is not legal because you have to take them to court to get your money. Oh. You cannot destroy the work that has been done.
But I do guess that this little scene we see here is quite some time afterwards, though, because Quicksilver mentions you don't want to go ride on the new subway. So they've had time.
They do not give a fuck about timing. Let's call it out as it is.
Yeah, and then that's that. I guess we'll see next week if they come back to Rogue and Nightcrawler dealing with their trauma.
Well, it does end with everybody, it's alluded to, beating the shit out of Quicksilver and destroying the remaining rooms in the house.
Oh, is that why we see the little explosions in the
flashes and stuff? Yeah, because everybody kind of gives him the eyebrow of the hell did you just say? This is all your fault.
Yeah.
And then the only piece of trivia that I was able to find about this episode, apparently Scott's buddy Paul, who we saw in episodes 1, 7, and 8, was on the train at one point.
Oh, what a random!
He was one of the bodies in the train. So
they just have to reuse a character model.
Yeah,
something.
I mean, we literally had Ellen DeGeneres as a concert goer. So yeah. And the Spin Doctor. The Spin Doctor, which wasn't even in any of the I swear, certain shows, the first season, people spend so much time on the wiki entries and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. When you get to the third or fourth season, they just give up.
Wait, in this show specifically is kind of a shame because I feel like it got better. You know, I mean, not that the first episodes were bad or anything, but I gotta say, as far as X-Men goes, I enjoy that aspect of it more now than initially. Initially, the parts I enjoyed most were kind of the high school stuff,
us trauma bonding.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the episode kind of just spoke for itself. It was it wasn't quite the bottle episode that Cruise Control was, but it did kind of feel a little inconsequential by the end. Besides the guys, the Brotherhood learning that they couldn't be heroes, really.
Well, it was very much one of those episodes where everything was wrapped up and the status quo returned to what it used to be.
Yeah, very Simpsons.
So unless there's some sort of ongoing, Mayor Kelly election story that goes into the next episode, then it's very much the cool, we're back where we started, except there are fewer trains that could come into the city.
I guess that is the thing that is a small piece of forward moving story is the Kelly stuff, is the mutant registration.
I mean, honestly, with the Kelly stuff, I feel like I want a payoff from this guy before we get to the series finale, because there was still that weird interaction with him and Xavier where Xavier could not, like, probe his mind like everybody else. And I hope that wasn't just dropped, but I'm also like, I don't know at this point. Like, this show has done... It's made decisions that I don't love. It's not that I dislike the show, but I felt like there wasn't, like, a lead on it throughout the entire thing, you know?
Yeah, oh, hell. They got 7 episodes to wrap this shit up, so
And one of them is a Morlocks episode, I know that, and another one is with X-23.
Oh, yeah, another X-23 one.
Yeah, okay. I do know that there's at least one more Morlocks episode. There's an episode focused on Gambit, because that was the one that Cosmo was almost our guest on before Remember It aired. And then there's another X-23 episode, because she had 2 appearances in the show before her comic book debut. So
very cool. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. That's any last thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
I know this is where you and I differ. I like a little bit of, like, the teenage drama. Like, Jean and Scott still haven't had the conversation yet. Mm-hmm. I would love for them to have that conversation before the show ends.
I don't mind it. It's just that, like, I really love superhero stories, so, like, it's just kind of fun to see them in some more action.
Well, from what I understand, what we are definitely covering in 2025 is very superhero show focused, so you'll get to return to form with that.
Oh, with that, yeah, because we do have another actual show.
I mean, technically, we have 3 more shows.
Yeah. But I mean, like, one more show that, like, maybe most of, like, the American audience has seen.
Yes,
stuff,
that's
so.
a valid.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, and hopefully next week we'll find out what the fuck happened with Rogue and Nightcrawler. But thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts. Make us #1 on CastBox.
Fucking what?